My name is Ryan. I'm 22 years old, living in a quiet town where the nights feel heavy and low, like the sky is holding its breath. Summer is fading into fall, and the air has that cool softness that makes you want to linger outside just a little longer, sipping coffee, smoking a cigarette, letting the world slow down. I've lived all my life in an old house at the edge of town. It's the kind of place where every creak tells a story, and the windows catch the glow of street lamps at night, turning into tiny flickering flames. Next door lives Elena, my neighbor. She's in her mid-40s, but there's something timeless about her, like she's caught in a moment that no one else can touch. Her dark hair is usually pinned loosely in a low bun, and her green eyes seem to carry secrets, the kind you can't put into words. We've never been close. Just polite greetings across the yard, small talk about the weather or my garden. But that night, everything shifted. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with bruised shades of purple and orange. I was walking home from work, tired, my thoughts hazy and distant. Then I heard it, soft jazz drifting from her open window, warm and inviting. I stopped, drawn by the sound. The kitchen light spilled out, casting a gentle glow in the gathering dusk. Without fully realizing it, I found myself knocking on her door. It opened before I could reconsider. She stood there, wearing a simple dark dress that hugged her figure in the soft light. Surprise flickered in her eyes, then softened into a smile, shy but knowing. "Ryan," she said softly. "Come in." Inside, the air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee and old books. The kitchen was cozy, lit only by flickering candlelight dancing across worn wooden surfaces. We sat at the table, drinking black coffee, bitter and strong, like the silence between us. Shadows played across her face, tracing the curves of her cheekbones and lips. I watched her hands, steady but trembling ever so slightly as she handed me my cup. We talked about books, music, silence, about how sometimes the quiet speaks louder than words. Her voice was low and steady, the kind that seeps under your skin. Then, her hand brushed mine. Light, accidental, but it sent a shiver up my spine. Neither of us pulled away. Our eyes locked, green meeting brown, and something unspoken passed between us. "You don't come around much," she said softly, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "I wondered when you." "The night stret." She reached out. And just like that, I knew this was the beginning of something I couldn't stop. The next day, I found myself thinking about Elena more than I expected. It wasn't just the way she looked or how her smile lingered in my mind, it was the silence we shared, the little moments where words faded and something deeper whispered between us. I told myself it was just curiosity. That maybe I was imagining things, reading too much into a casual touch, a glance held a moment too long. But the truth was, I wanted to see her again. I wanted to sit in that quiet room with the soft jazz and candlelight, to breathe in the scent of coffee and old books, to watch her fingers move across the pages of some forgotten novel. When I knocked on her door that afternoon, my heart was a tight drum in my chest. She opened it with that same soft smile, and something in the way her eyes met mine made me feel like I'd crossed a line, or maybe that the line had disappeared altogether. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Inside, the kitchen felt warmer somehow, the fading daylight pooling on the floor in golden patches. She handed me a cup of tea this time, chamomile, I think, and we settled near the window. Outside, the world was quiet, but inside, the air hummed with something electric. We talked about nothing and everything. About the books she loved, the music that made her heart race, the small regrets that never quite leave you. Her voice was soft, a quiet melody that wrapped around me. At one point, I noticed her fingers brushing against mine as she reached for her cup. The touch was so faint it could have been a trick of the light, but I felt it deep in my bones. My breath caught, and I tried not to let my gaze wander. She caught me looking. "Do you always get this nervous?" she asked, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. I laughed, a little too loudly. No, I said. Only around you. She paused, her eyes holding mine longer than before. Ryan, she whispered, there's something about you. I can't explain it. The room felt smaller, closer. The space between us seemed to shrink with every heartbeat. We sat there, side by side, the silence growing heavy and full of promise. I wanted to reach out, to touch her hand properly, to see if the warmth I felt was real or just a trick of my own longing. Instead, I stayed still, letting the moment stretch out, fragile and perfect. When I left that evening, the sky was painted in deep blues and fading golds. She walked me to the door, her hand lingering just a moment longer on my shoulder, a whisper of contact that set my skin on fire. Tomorrow, she said softly. I nodded, already counting the hours until I could be near her again. Days slipped by in that slow, sweet rhythm, visits that felt both ordinary and electric, like walking a tightrope between friendship and something neither of us dared to name aloud. Each time I stepped through Elena's door, I felt a rush, a nervous energy that tingled at the base of my spine. The way her eyes would catch the light, the softness of her voice, the scent of her skin lingering in the air long after I left. One evening, she invited me to stay for dinner. The kitchen was filled with the scent of roasted garlic and herbs. Candlelight flickered on the table, throwing shadows that danced like secrets between us. We ate slowly, the silence between bites filled with unspoken words. I watched her as she laughed softly at a story I told, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, the gentle tilt of her head. After dinner, we moved to the living room, settling into the old leather couch. She reached for a book on the coffee table, a poetry collection. Her fingers traced the spine, then she handed it to me. Read me something, she said, voice low. I opened the pages, my fingers trembling slightly. The words spilled out, soft and slow, echoing in the quiet room. When I looked up, she was watching me, eyes heavy with something I couldn't quite place. The air between us thickened, electric and fragile. Without thinking, I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Her skin was warm beneath my fingertips, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of us. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into the touch, her breath catching softly. Ryan, she whispered, voice trembling. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to say something, to confess everything swirling inside me, but the words stuck. All I could do was sit there, feeling the weight of the moment, the sharp ache of longing and the thrilling duh. When I left that night, the sky was thick with stars. My hand still tingled where hers had brushed mine. I knew nothing would ever be the same. That evening, I arrived at Elena's house with my heart pounding in my chest. The sun was setting again, casting a soft orange glow that filled the kitchen with warmth. She greeted me with a smile that made my breath hitch, like she held a secret just for me. We sat close at the kitchen table, the space between us smaller than before. The soft clinking of coffee cups was the only sound for a while. I watched her carefully, the way her fingers wrapped around her mug, the slight tremble in her hands, the way her eyes searched mine, as if trying to speak without words. I feel like there's a language we're starting to understand, she said softly. One without sounds, without explanations. I nodded, swallowing hard. The air was thick, every breath, every glance charged with electricity. Her hand moved slowly toward mine, fingertips grazing the back of my hand. I didn't pull away. Instead, I closed my fingers gently over hers. The silence between us grew louder. Do you ever wonder, she whispered, voice barely audible, what it would be like if we didn't have to hide? My pulse quickened. The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. I looked into her eyes, green, deep, shimmering with something raw and real. My voice came out soft, shaky. I think about it all the time. She smiled, that secret smile again, and leaned closer just enough for me to feel the warmth of her breath. Our hands stayed entwined, the moment stretching like a fragile thread between us. Time slowed, and the rest of the world faded away. When I finally left that night, the night air was cool against my skin, but inside, I was burning, alive with the promise of what was to come. I found myself standing outside her door longer than usual, my hand hovering over the knob, reluctant to break the spell that held me there. The warm glow from inside spilled through the glass panels, casting soft patterns on the porch. My breath hitched as the door opened, revealing Elena's silhouette framed in candlelight. She looked at me with those eyes, deep, knowing, like she was waiting for me to cross some invisible line. The room was filled with the scent of vanilla and something uniquely hers, a fragrance that clung to my skin long after I left. We didn't speak much. Words felt unnecessary, even inadequate. Instead, I let my eyes trace the curve of her neck, the gentle rise and fall of her breath. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing my cheek, tender and deliberate. My heart hammered so loud I was sure she could hear it. Her touch sent warmth flooding through me, a quiet fire that spread from my skin to my soul. I leaned into her hand, closing my eyes for a moment, savoring the softness, the connection. "Ryan," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "Are you sure?" "Sure of what?" The question hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful, delicate, threatening to shatter. I opened my eyes, meeting hers, and nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." Her lips curved into a smile that was both shy and bold. She stepped closer, until the space between us vanished. Our breaths mingled, shallow and quick. Her hands slid to my shoulders, steadying me, grounding me. I reached up, fingers trembling, to touch her face, the smooth skin, the curve of her jaw, the warmth that made my head spin. And then, finally, we kissed. Soft at first, hesitant, like learning the shape of a new language. But then the kiss deepened, slower, more certain, a silent promise, a gentle surrender. The world outside disappeared. Time lost all meaning. There was only the two of us, tangled in the quiet, our hearts beating the same urgent rhythm. The room was dim, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight flickering against the walls. Outside, the night stretched wide and silent, but inside, every breath, every touch, pulsed with a quiet intensity. Elena's fingers traced the line of my collarbone, her touch feather-light but electric. I felt the heat rise in my chest, the slow unraveling of every thought, every doubt. Our eyes locked, and I saw everything there: desire, hesitation, trust. She reached up, her palm warm against my cheek, guiding me closer. Our breaths mingled, shallow and trembling. Her lips found mine again, gentle at first, exploring, as if memorizing the taste and feel of me. The world outside faded to a whisper. Her hands moved with careful reverence, along my arms, my back, pulling me closer, closer still. I felt the silk of her skin beneath my fingertips, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. Every nerve ending seemed to hum with anticipation. When her hands slipped beneath my shirt, the warmth of her skin against mine was a shock and a balm all at once. We moved slowly, deliberately, as if savoring a secret dance. No rush, only the soft sounds of breathing, the quiet sighs, the steady beat of two hearts coming alive. Her touch was a language I wanted to learn by heart, soft strokes, trembling fingers, the way her skin quivered beneath my palms. We lay together, bodies entwined, a tangle of warmth and whispers. I felt the electric pulse of connection, raw, tender, and real. Her breath brushed my neck, a shiver trailing down my spine. In that moment, time dissolved. There was only us. And the quiet, infinite charge of being completely known, and completely alive.